Boxing became so special to me because as a kid, I was a constant agitator. So watching my father be so enthused by watching Muhammad Ali fight Joe Frazier, I was really taken by that because my father was so into the boxing. And Muhammad Ali was doing exactly what I love to do, which was aggravate Joe Frazier while he beat him. So I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. If somebody ever taught me how to use my hands, I can do that because my mindset is the exact same as his mindset. I just don't know how to throw the punches yet. So if somebody teaches me how to throw the punches, I probably could do that. And that's what boxing meant to me right off top.
From Pensacola, Florida, a future Hall of Famer, the former middleweight world champion, former super middleweight world champion, former light heavyweight world champion, and former heavyweight champion of the world, Roy Jones Jr.
The word impossible for Roy Jones Jr. is a word that I think I take it the opposite. So if somebody tell me something is impossible, guess what? That's exactly what I think I'll go try to do. So if they tell me it's impossible for a guy to be at the Olympics as a junior middleweight and become heavyweight champion of the world, guess what? I think that's what I'll go try to do because I love to be challenged. So when you tell me something is impossible, that's what I want to go try. So when people say, there's no way he can do it again, oh yeah? And that's what the problem I have now. I have to try to fight impossible every day because me and the word impossible, we battle every day. You know, every time I have to make myself forget about impossible because if I don't, I'll be fighting again because in my mind, what they tell me I can't do is exactly what I want to go do.
Can't be touched, can't be stopped, can't be moved, can't be rocked, can't be shook. We hot. When will you niggas learn? Came to get crunk, came to bring life, came to get started, came to get right. Turn down the music, turn up my mic. When will you niggas learn?
I remember my first amateur fight very vividly. There was nobody there in my weight class. I was 10 years old, 79 pounds. It was on Pensacola Beach, Labor Day weekend, 1979. And they asked me, did I want to fight that guy? I said, you know he's bigger than you and he's older. I was only 10, he was like 14. So yeah, I'll fight him. So little did I know, and this is why my life is so different and so fun to me, is because God has ways of showing us things and preparing us for things that we never know are coming. By me sacrificing and giving up that much weight at the age that I was only 10. And I felt like I still could beat this kid. And this kid had fights before. So we gloved up. They said, do you want headgear? And when I started boxing, headgear was optional. I said, no, I don't want the headgear. So when I beat this kid, I won a blue trophy. That was my very first fight. And from then, that was the first trophy I ever received. I played football, never got a trophy. So when I got that trophy, it turned me on. I loved trophies. So from that point, I started wanting to pursue boxing all the time. I wanted to fight all the time. Sometimes we ups and downs, we would fight, then we wouldn't fight for a long time, and the long drought would bother me. But I wanted to become a person with a lot of trophies, which I did. And then, as a kid, I started to see in '76, I think I saw the '76 Olympics. And I saw Sugar Ray Leonard, Leo Randolph, Howard Davis Jr., and I really saw how the people were, the fans were cheering for them, USA, USA. And I was like, wow, they're representing the whole country in boxing. I gotta do that one day. So that became my dream as a young kid, was to go to the Olympics and represent my country. And you gotta remember, this is not about pay. This is about love, honor, respect, and wanting to show that your country is a superior country. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, I want to do that one day. I want to represent my country one day. And that became the biggest dream to me as a young kid. I think I was 7. And in the '76, yes, I was 7. So that really blew my mind, but it gave me a desire and a hunger to want to be that person one day that could represent my country. So when I got to the Olympic Games in 1988, I sacrificed 9 years of my life to get there. And by the grace of God, I made it because 88 was a really tough year for me. I lost in the Amateur Boxing Federation tournament to the #1 guy. I lost in the National Golden Gloves tournament to a guy that was ranked pretty high. And I get to the Olympic trials, they have 8 people. 6 of them are winners. 1 is a inter-service champion runner-up, and 1 is an at-large guy, a guy who they thought was having a bad year. But they rank you from according to what tournament you won over to the at-large guy. The at-large guy is the last guy. So 1 through 8, I was the at-large guy, the last ranked guy to go to the Olympics trials. When I got to the Olympic trials, I told them all they should have prayed harder that I didn't get there, because if God put me there, He wants me to win it. And that's just what I felt. So when I got to the Olympic trials, I blasted them all. I only had one hand. This hand was in tremendous pain. But I blasted them, and I had to beat Frankie Lyles again, who I had lost to in the Amateur Boxing Federation tournament earlier that year. So I had to beat him twice. After that, I got to Olympics. The Olympics was going pretty smooth at first. I had the quickest knockout of the first fight. I think I fought Malaysian guy the first night, and I fought a Seoul South Korean guy the last night. And the Seoul South Korean guy was a nice person, but I beat him probably just as bad as I beat everybody else. And matter of fact, I probably hit him more than I hit anybody else. And they robbed me and gave him my gold medal, and I got a silver medal. For me, that was the most tragic thing that could have ever happened to me, because at the time, I felt like I had sacrificed 9 years of my young life. I had no childhood because of boxing. So I sacrificed 9 years to win a gold medal, and to have them rob it, just take it from me, was the worst thing that I could have possibly seen happening. Yet, 2 or 3 days later, I started to realize that, you know, this is why, again, you have to have faith in God. No way could the worst thing that I thought ever happened to me turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. But it did. So that's why when you're going through ups and downs in life, you can't always look at the bad things as bad things. Sometimes they're learning lessons. Sometimes they're learning curves. Sometimes they're meant to be inspirational, to add to that desire. In that case, that was meant to be inspirational, to add to my desire to want to be the best, because they gave me the Val Barker Cup, which means I was the best fighter at the Olympics, but I don't have a gold medal. How contradictory is that? The best fighter there doesn't have a gold medal. But what it did is because I'm the kind of person that I don't want to win unless I win fair. If I don't win fair, I don't want it. So because they gave me the Val Barker Cup, I didn't know at the time, but God knew that that would make me go out and try to prove now that I was the best, not only at the Olympics, but in the whole world. So giving me the Val Barker Cup just added more to the fire. Now, like I say, it's almost impossible because it's basically contradictory on the IOC part. He don't win a gold medal, but he's the best boxer here. How does the best boxer here not get a gold medal when ain't nobody beat him? It's not like he had a bad night and a guy outpointed him, but we still know he was the best. No, he completely humiliated this guy, and he gets the Val Barker Cup, but he has no gold medal. And then 32 years later, they still haven't fixed it. So it was crazy, but that was my first, well, not my first, but that was one of my biggest lessons in learning how powerful God is, because only God could have took that negative and turned it into the positive that He turned it into for me.
Roy Jones, the first of 3 Americans to go for the gold today. Later on, we'll see Andrew Maynard and Riddick Bowe, and Roy Jones severely outclassed his opponent Park Si-hun of Korea as we await the decision.
And Jones scored from outside, he scored from inside, and he scored from the middle distance. Almost anywhere he chose to stand and give angles, he outboxed, outpunched, outsped, and out-talented Park. Well, if he doesn't win the gold off this, then I think there's something rotten in Korea, because that is absolutely one of the most dominant things I've seen.
The winner is on point 3-2 in the blue corner.
Transitioning from amateur to professional was very easy for me, mainly because my style already was geared around a professional style. So I don't think I ever really adhered to the amateur system. It was always me thinking I was going to be a pro fighter one day after the Olympics, because after you got older and start trying to go to the Olympics, you realize that the guys that don't make it to the Olympics, they turn pro and they become that year's pro class. So you have a pro class of 84, guy that didn't make the Olympics was Mike Tyson, was the biggest name. But Mike Tyson did more than all the guys that even made the Olympics. As a matter of fact, he beat the two guys, the heavyweight and the super heavyweight, that made the Olympics in 84 as a pro. So you start to learn then that just because they don't make the Olympics doesn't mean anything. Some of the guys who don't make the Olympics become better pros. So for instance, Mark Breland was probably the best amateur on the team in 84. But Mark Breland didn't turn out to be the best pro. Pernell Whitaker had a much better career. Evander Holyfield had a much better career. I mean, it's just a lot of people had, Virgil Hill even, they had much better careers than Mark Breland, but Mark Breland was the most celebrated amateur boxer in the United States, probably of all time. He got a gold medal in 84, but he didn't pan out to be a good pro. So if your style wasn't oriented to be a style that went on and carried you through the professional rankings, your style really wasn't that good. I had a good friend of mine on my team named Kenny Gould. Kenny Gould was a master of the point system in amateur boxing. I think Kenny Gould might have ended up with a bronze medal in the Olympics in '88, but Kenny Gould never could make it as a professional because he was too locked in on the amateur style. He couldn't make that conversion. For me, that conversion was very easy.
We get ready for our first HBO look at Roy Jones, the outstanding boxer of the 1988 Seoul Olympics when he was jobbed by bad scoring out of a gold medal. He has fought in obscurity in his professional career. How good is he? What's at stake for him tonight?
He seems to have it all, Jim. He has great hand speed, solid punching power, puts his punches together well, and has great confidence. But he's fighting a tall, experienced fighter, a good boxer, great lateral movement. It could be a problem. Let's see if he can solve it.
Left hook landed on Harris's chin, but it's not as powerful as the earlier left hook and right cross bombs that Jones has been throwing. That one wobbled Harris just a little bit. If there's any weakness at all, Gil, he doesn't look to me as though he commits to the jab very often. He could make it more effective.
Right, he just doesn't set guys up with that left hand, but with the power he has and the speed. And he's been so effective, I guess he feels he doesn't have to throw a snappy left jab.
Wobbled Harris again with a left hook there. Left and a right as he backs up and moves away from Harris. Another right cross. Harris in trouble again. Can Harris make it out around 4? Not without going down.
3. That's it. That's it.
And Tony Orlando has seen enough. So we're looking at a potential all-time great, right?
Well, all-time great is a little bit in the distance. I mean, but right now he looks that way.
Let's go up to ring announcer Michael Buffer for the official particulars.
Ladies and gentlemen, the official time comes at the end of the 4th round. The winner by knockout victory. And now his record, 20-0, 19 KOs, and he owns the WBC Continental America Super Middleweight Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, Roy Jones Jr.
The very first title I won as a professional was the WBC Intercontinental Super Middleweight title. That was my very first belt. I was so proud of that belt because I always wanted a green belt. I won all the belts, but I definitely wanted a green one because WBC was hot and it was a green one. So I always aimed at that. And I thought that I would probably fight Julian Jackson to get it first. And so when I got an opportunity to fight for the Intercontinental title, I was like, yes, this get me ranked in the WBC. Maybe I can fight for the WBC belt. So I fought Percy Harris in Atlantic City. I wasn't a super middleweight yet. I was still fighting middleweight. But to fight at 164 catch weight for the 168-pound title, I said, why not? So I fought him, beat him, won that one. Then I think my first world WBC title was against probably Mike McCallum at light heavyweight. I think that's the first time I won the world WBC belt. My style is very different and very creative, yes, very unique. But the way it was created was a lot of things. You know, first, my father taught me a very good foundation. Everything about footwork, I learned hours and hours and hours in. Everything about punching correctly, I learned hours and hours and hours in. Everything about defense, I learned hours and hours and hours in. Every aspect of boxing, counter punching, rolling, slipping, dipping, everything. I have hours and hours on top of hours of doing it repeatedly over and over and over again. As a kid, I used to like cockfighting. I like anything that fight. I used to catch insects and make them fight. Praying mantises and make them fight. I used to catch anything I could that would fight and make them fight and watch because I was fascinated with fighting. Never fought dogs because I liked my dogs too much, but everything else, I wanted to see it fight. So I learned about the roosters and learned that they naturally fight. I started watching. And what I really wanted to know was what made one rooster better than the other, because they're all just roosters, you think. So obviously if they one beating the other, something has to make them better. So I started also studying what made those better. And I learned about the feints, the different things they do, hold him, then attack him, feint him, make him punch, then attack him. I learned different things like that, and I was always an animal kid. I always loved animals. So I had a Doberman Pinscher when I was a little kid. He would always kill snakes. And I was always amazed at how this dog kills snakes, because the Doberman Pinscher doesn't have a tolerance for pain like a pit bull has. My pit bull, if a snake bite him, he don't care. He just grab the snake and shake it anyway. Now he may be sick for a few days if the snake's poisonous, but if it's not a poisonous snake, he don't care. He don't care if it's poison or not. He just run right in and grab it and just shake it up. But he'll get killed like that. That Doberman Pinscher, he couldn't tolerate pain, so he would never get bit by a snake. He would sit there and aggravate and aggravate and aggravate and aggravate, aggravate, make the snake strike. Once the snake strikes, then he attacks and shakes him and throws him before he hit the ground and gets him, and it's over with. But I learned that when a guy can punch, the best time to hit a guy is when he's trying to punch you, because that's what that dog would do. He wouldn't attack that snake till that snake reached at him. Then he make that snake pay. So that's the most vulnerable time to catch a guy. So things like that made me unique, because I learned how to take nature, which is what God gave me, and combine that with the technique that I learned to make a complete overall fighter. It's a big difference in style with me, or Holyfield, Mike Tyson in that era, the Muhammad Ali days, the Sugar Ray Leonard days. The biggest thing is that we had more technique than conditioning. Nowadays, fighters are more into strength and conditioning than technique. How that happened was people started getting lazy with technique. So they would have technique, like you have a lot of guys that would have a technique, but they wouldn't be conditioned. So they come to the ring, they look good for a few rounds, then they die off. The better conditioned guy win the fight. So what started happening was a lot of guys that had technique were getting beat by guys that didn't have the same technique, but had better conditioning. So what happens? Boxing transitioned from a skill sport to a better conditioned sport. So now people forget about technique, but they work on more on condition. Condition becomes the priority. So if you look at it right now, Tyson Fury is not the best technical guy, but his condition is good for his size. So he beats Wilder. But Wilder not really very technical either. But because Fury is bigger and Fury has a big heart, he can take the little bit of technique that he does have and overcome Wilder, because he's in just as good a shape, but he has a little bit more technique. You understand? Wilder's one of these guys who is strong, but he focuses more on power. Back in the old days, everybody had power naturally anyway. And don't get it wrong, some of it is due to the food that we eat now, the chemicals that we are exposed to. All of those things have a lot to do with the condition of the fighters today. So now people more trying to take care of their bodies and get themselves in better condition than they are worried about technique. So a lot of guys, even when I train right now, they come to my gym and I make them spend time, repetitious time like I did, on technique. They don't like it. They just want to beat bags, beat hand mitts, spar. Well, how can you do all this if you don't know the real technique that it takes to do it? So that's what's happening. We're missing all that, because as soon as you come to the gym, first thing you want to do is hit something. In our day, it wasn't like that. You knew what kind of fighter you were, you knew how to jab, you knew how to throw a right hand, you knew how to throw every punch, you knew how to counter every punch, you knew how to defend every punch, you knew boxing from here, then here. Now you learn it from here. toughest situation in my boxing career was losing my first fight. I got disqualified again, just like at the Olympics. Wrongfully done. I got disqualified in my first loss against Montel Griffin. Now I hit him, he's on the floor laid out, and he wins on the floor. The whole purpose of boxing is to knock the other guy out. How can this guy be down here faking like he's out and y'all give him my title? He's on his face out and he wins? No, let's just refight that. You don't give him a win. I mean, then what's bad about it, in that same state, Vinny Pazienza was fighting Dana Rosenblatt, I think his name was. The referee told Vinny to stop, jumped in between them. Vinny hit Rosenblatt again. He hit the referee. He hit everybody. He didn't get disqualified. Same state. Riddick Bowe hit Jesse Ferguson 2 or 3 times after the referee said stop. Same state. They shut the lights off, turned it back on. He didn't get disqualified. Me standing there waiting, I tapped the guy, waiting for the referee to say stop. I'm not gonna take my eyes off of him because it's my job. Referee don't say stop, so I tap him again. Immediately disqualified me. Really? Me? Of all people who wasn't trying to do nothing wrong, I tapped him, waiting to hear the referee say stop. All the referee had to do was say stop, I won't touch him again. Because now if I turn and walk away and he hits me, the referee has to disqualify him, but the referee would have gave me the command to stop first. So that was my most probably devastating moment of my career because I never wanted to have a loss. When that happened, that ruined it. When you got a big fight, you're always under pressure because you don't want to let people down. And when you have a big name like me, you have high expectations. So you don't want to not fulfill these expectations. You want to either match their expectation or outdo their expectation. You never want to fall short of what people expect of you. That's the most pressure I had. When it came time to fight, I was very serious-minded, but nothing really mattered except making sure I had my mind right. Because if my mind is right, God gave me the gift already. I just have to go out there and perform. But if my mind ain't right, it'd be very difficult to perform and do whatever or hear what God tells me. Because people don't understand that when you're performing like that, God gives you intuition. For me, it felt like he had a cellular database up there that he would punch me down and say, okay, try this thing. And I was just trying. Where it came from, I don't know. I just think it was a message from God. So one time I was fighting the guy, I couldn't get the guy to punch no more because I was counter punching him so much, he stopped punching. So it seemed like I got a message from God saying, I tell you what, put your hand behind your back, he'll punch then. I'm like, ooh, really in a pro fight? Okay, put my hand behind my back, pow, there he goes. Works. So I have that much faith in God that anything God puts me to do, that I know that that's what God told me to do, I'm going to do it. The legends, they do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. The champions, they get to be champions, but they don't last long. They get to be champions, but they don't do it the right way. They get to be champions, but they have too many close back and forth that we ain't sure what happened. They don't dominate. The legends find a way to dominate even in adversity. So the legends like Mike Tyson, yeah, late he lost, but when he was dominating, wasn't nobody touching him. Pernell Whitaker, when he was dominating, wasn't nobody touching him. Sugar Ray Leonard, when he was dominating, the only other person that could touch him was somebody also great like him, which was Roberto Duran. But those are legends. It takes one legend to touch another. The rest of them can't touch him, not in his prime. So legends are built because they can come back and do it over and over and over again. Only time you may see them struggle is against another legend, not just another ordinary joke. That don't happen. When I was a kid watching Muhammad Ali, he would always make rhymes, joking rhyme, but he would make rhymes about people, even with the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. That's why they called me Muhammad Ali. Same thing, he was rapping, just not putting the music to it and not doing complete songs. So it's like when he sets a bar, when the greatest set a bar, the reason they set that bar is because those that follow him supposed to either reach that bar or supersede that bar. If you don't reach that bar, then he did no good. And he didn't do that for no reason. He didn't do that to waste his time. So he set the bar where he started making rhymes about people, about things, about fights. Sometimes he make a rhyme about what round he gonna end the fight in. He made all types of rhymes. So me knowing that, when I got older, I realized rap music was a form of expression, was a way to express yourself. So I said, wow, if Muhammad Ali could express himself in a few lines like that, I think I can take it a step further and do a whole song. And as a matter of fact, why not make my own song that I come to the ring with? So I started trying to do it. And it grew and grew and developed into, y'all must have forgot. Then it grew into the can't be touched, can't be stopped. It just got real, you know? So it grew, it took what Muhammad Ali said, and I just took it and tried to take it to another level, that's all. You know, it's kind of hard for me to really see my future in the next 10 years. I'm hoping to see it with a house or two in Russia, with a few gyms, training a few world champions, still raising my chickens, still traveling the world, no coronavirus, and maybe another few rap albums. Just enjoying life, you know, trying to enjoy life, but also be a guide to help people better negate their lives and help people who are lost to find their ways, because that's what I love doing. For anybody who's out there that's aspiring to be a young boxer, there's a few things you need to do if you really want to box. First thing is you have to find out who God is, because God is your creator. With God, all things are possible. Without God, not much is gonna happen for you, trust me. Second thing you have to figure out is how bad do you want to box. You have to be willing to kill or die almost if you really want to be a professional boxer. Now, if you want to be an amateur boxer, you ain't got to kill or die. It's just about outpointing the guy and winning. But if you want to be a professional boxer, you got to be willing, ready, and able to put it all on the line. Third thing, if you're going to box, find you a trainer who understands boxing, who knows how to separate different personalities, different styles, different DNAs, who knows how to use what God gave you. If your trainer can't teach you how to use what God gave you, meaning whether it's speed, whether it's power, whether it's reach, whether it's shortness, no matter what it is, whatever you are, genetically, a trainer has to be able to bring the best you out of you. Not just be a trainer that just train people. He got to know what it is about you that makes you you, and he got to be able to take that to the max. If you put those three things together, you should have no problem being the best that you possibly can be. What up, this your boy Roy Jones Jr. Right now you're tuned in to Big Fish Boxing, and I am a big fish, trust me.